entertainment, sports, news, and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
You told us on May that you were going to give us all of Lois Lerner's emails, and you learned in February that this crashed.
I did not learn in February it was a crash, and we told you on Monday.
I'm not asking you a question. I'm just making a statement.
My apologies.
You are the Internal Revenue Service. You can reach into the lives of hardworking taxpayers, and with a phone call, an email, or a letter, you can turn their lives upside down. You asked taxpayers to hang on to 7 years of their personal tax information in case they're ever audited, and you can't keep 6 months' worth of employee emails?
All right, folks, that is now kind of iconic from the testimony of the IRS commissioner before the committee with Paul Ryan on it in the House on Friday, not yesterday's Oversight Committee. And joining us now to talk about all that, where it fits in the big picture, is Dr. Larry Sabato, director of the University of Virginia Center for Politics, and, of course, Sabato's Crystal Ball blog. Hello, Doctor.
Hey, how are you, Steve?
Great. Always great to talk to you, sir. All right, so let me ask you this. Obama's poll ratings, and these are all the polls. I mean, today we had another one come out, ABC, Washington Post. The other day it was NBC, Wall Street Journal. It's been Gallup. No matter what it is, Obama's ratings are in the toilet on just about everything. Do these, the IRS, Iraq, that all play into it? And is that going to continue to hurt him? And if he's hurt, does that continue to hurt the Democrats going into November?
Yes and yes. Look, here's what we say about presidential approval. It is a fantastic summary statistic that in one number tells you how the American public is viewing the incumbent administration and therefore the party he represents. You know, if you only had one number for an election, you would ask for presidential popularity. So all of this plays into the lowering of his approval rating, and as his approval ratings lower, Democratic candidates, especially in red states where you have most of the key Senate contests, those Democratic candidates will do worse.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. Let me ask you about the IRS scandal, for instance. You know, I believe because of what we just heard in that Paul Ryan bite, you know, notwithstanding the arrogance, which many has interpreted as arrogance, including me, from the IRS commissioner and yesterday's, last night's testimony, and even back to Ryan's. I think what Paul Ryan, that confrontation with Ryan, makes this relatable to every American. Now, every American might not know about it, might not have seen it because, you know, there is almost a media blackout in certain circles, but I think they all showed that. And I think because people could, you know, relate to fearing the IRS, whether they've been audited or not, and knowing what they have to do just in case the IRS comes knocking and keeping papers, keeping records, I think that's going to keep this resonating for a long time.
Sure, it's hypocrisy. You know, it's do as I say, not as I do. You have the obligation to keep your records for 6 or 7 years, but of course we don't have that obligation, even though it's written into law. We're supposed to have a paper backup, I believe. Aren't they supposed to have a paper backup of all of the emails that are sent?
Yes.
So suddenly, you know, as a lot of people have got a new excuse when they're called in for their audit. They may bring in that video clip of Paul Ryan.
The IRS excuse, right? The defense, the IRS
excuse.
defense. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to fly or not, but that's going to be interesting. All right, so also Iraq. The new poll out today, the ABC News Washington Post poll shows that, you know, people are dissatisfied with the way he's handled Iraq. All of this, right? I mean, all of these things. And you know what? I got to say, what I think about most immediately is if they're unhappy with Barack Obama on all these various issues, how, looking ahead, if Hillary's the nominee, does she separate herself from all these same issues and all these basically same policies?
Yes. First, don't forget about the Veterans Administration scandal.
Yes.
I think that actually has more impact than any of the others, simply because Americans care about those 23 million veterans. They care about the 8 to 9 million that use VA health care. That is a basic promise that we give to soldiers and their families, the soldiers that go abroad and risk their lives to protect the rest of us. So it's a unifying scandal. You know, some scandals upset only Republicans. Some scandals upset only Democrats. This scandal upsets Democrats, Republicans, and independents. Now, as far as Hillary is concerned, I have heard many times from Hillary supporters and even some of her staff members that she'll be able to separate herself from Obama because she's going to say, I'm going to be more like that president you had in the 90s. You may know him. He's otherwise known as my husband. That really doesn't work. The whole history of presidential elections tells us that when people are voting for a successor, they retrospectively review the record of the incumbent president. If they want to continue that president's record, say with Ronald Reagan, they elect George H.W. Bush. If they don't want to continue that president's record, as with George W. Bush, they elect the opposite party's candidate, Barack Obama. I don't think she's going to be able to change history.
Especially, Larry, because she wasn't vice president, but she served as Secretary of State for 4 years.
Yeah, no, she owns the Obama administration, no matter what she says.
Yeah.
You know, she can say, oh, I would have done that differently, I would have done that differently. Well, then the Republican nominee, whoever that turns out to be, can turn and say, well, why didn't you resign? If you felt so strongly about that, why didn't you resign? You could have had a difference. You could have made a difference if you'd done that.
Absolutely. Let me ask you one more about her before we move to some of the primaries, big primaries that are on tap for tonight. And one question is, you know, she made this gaffe on we were flat broke. She then then corrected herself, or tried to, then went on and told the British newspaper, we pay this kind of tax and not like the real rich people, or the whatever she said, and put a foot in her mouth again. And today, Bill Clinton comes to her rescue, and again, it's almost like it reminds me of, what Clinton speak, because he, technically, or whatever word he used, sure, she's right in what she said. Now, why would he go there? Why would he keep it going? Why wouldn't he just say, look, we're well off, we're blessed, whatever Hillary said, I'm sure she didn't mean it, but why would he go, well, technically, according to the letter of what she said, she was right.
We're back to the meaning of is. Look, when I heard her say that, I just laughed out loud, because they are easily top 1%. I'd say it's probably 1/10 of 1%. I mean, who else do you know that can make $200,000 or $250,000 for giving a canned speech?
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Clinton, I believe, has made over $100 million just with speeches since he left office. It just shows really that there are aspects of their personalities that will come into play again in 2016, as they did in 2008. Remember Bill making all those gaffes on the campaign trail and causing problems for Hillary? Why has that changed? I don't think it has.
Very interesting. All right. We got a big race in coming up tonight, a bunch of primaries, and you give the slight edge, at least the last I looked, to Chris McDaniel over the incumbent Thad Cochran. Do you believe that's how it's going to wind up?
Well, it should, simply because it is extremely rare for a challenger to force an incumbent into a runoff and actually lead the incumbent in the first primary and not win in the runoff primary. I mean, it's exceedingly rare. Doesn't mean it can't happen. And I got to tell you this, somebody has awakened Thad Cochran. It must be, the establishment supporters that he has. He's run a much better campaign during the runoff period than he did prior to the first primary. So they've made a bipartisan coalition with some African Americans, some Democrats, some independents to come into the Republican primary, which is legal in Mississippi. Democrats can vote in the Republican primary and vice versa.
Yeah.
So it's not out of the question that Cochran could pull this off, but every indication from history is that McDaniel would win the runoff primary.
What's better for the Republicans? What should the Republicans hope for? Not if you're a Tea Party fan or you're not a Tea Party fan, but as far as the general election, does it matter?
Yeah, if you let me leave ideology out of it totally and issues out of it totally, I would say Cochran would be the easier nominee, because we would classified as safe Republican. There's zero chance the Democrat could win against Cochran. There is, I'd say, a 25 to 30% chance the Democrat could win against McDaniel, simply because he does say controversial things. And remember, in the past several cycles, there have been Republican nominees who've made serious gaffes and as a result have lost the seat.
Oh, yeah. One more for you very quickly, and it's taking place right here in the backyard of where I sit, and that's Charles Rangel. He barely won out last time, and now it's, you know, he's got a Hispanic opponent, and the demographics have changed in his district. What do you say?
Well, look, he should have retired. That's what I say. He should have retired. The voters gave him a hint 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, he was in for 21 terms, going for the 22nd, and the voters renominated him by 1,000 votes.
Yep.
If that isn't a hint, I don't know what is. But they just can never give up. So he's 84, and he's going for his 23rd term. Don't be surprised if he wins it.
Yeah, we will see. Hey, Doctor, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Steve. I enjoyed talking.
Thank you. Dr. Larry Sabato, folks. Next up, it's Give Me 5 right here on Newsmax Television, Steve Malzberg Show.